Welcome to the Redbird Report, your destination for the latest on the St. Louis Cardinals. Here are your hosts, BK and T-Bone.
I can't believe we have almost made it, T-Bone. We are days away from the start of the 2026 St. Louis Cardinals season. And I got to ask you a question. And I'm genuinely asking. I know what we do here. I understand what the show is. Yeah. So obviously you have an interest in baseball. I ask this earnestly. Are you excited for the start of the Cardinals baseball season?
You know what's funny? If you would have asked that question to me about a month ago, I would have said no, right? Because you're looking at this rebuild, I look at this roster, and I go, man, I don't think they're going to hit a lot. And watching a team without an offense is one of the most painful experiences in the world. It's even painful like when we saw the Pirates come to town for just 3 games last year. Now imagine 162 games of it. But you know what? With the World Baseball Classic going on, and I've been able to watch some of the spring training games when they're on, I know they're going to be bad. But you know what? I'm ready for the first month just to see what it looks like and see if it is as bad as I'm expecting or if they might be able to surprise me and prove me a little bit better. So yes, I found myself getting that itch for baseball again.
I felt the exact same way. The World Baseball Classic did it for me. There's something about watching this, especially with the level of competition that we've seen between these teams and the amount of emotion that we've been able to see. It's pulling it right back out of me. And the weather turned for a little while before it got cold again. But weather turned, it's like, all right, here we go. There's the ebbs and the flows of the season. It brings you right into the start of Cardinals baseball. So I'm getting that itch again. I'm getting excited to the point where I actually wrote down my opening day roster projection.
Oh.
And this is where I want to begin with you because I think we have a pretty good idea of what the Cardinals roster is going to be on opening day. I want to say this right now. Don't get mad at me. I didn't create this roster. They created this roster. I'm just telling you my prediction for who's going to make it. I'm the messenger. The Cardinals have done this, and I think they've done a good job. I think they're going about this the right way, but as T-Bone said, that doesn't mean they're going to be any good, so let's go ahead and talk about this. My opening day roster projection, T-Bone, I know you came up with yours as well. I want to see if we have any differences.
All right.
On the infield, I'm including catchers in this conversation.
Okay.
I've got Saggese. Yeah. I've got Burley. I've got Wetherholt. I've got Wynn. I've got Gorman, and if you include the DH, add in Herrera. As my bench bats, part of the infield mix, Fermin, Urias, and Pozo. Those are my guys that can play the infield. Do you have any differences there?
I do not. I believe that's what their roster is going to be. I would argue for a case for Thomas Saggese still over Jose Fermin, but I think they're going to choose to get him at bats because I think the more I've thought about it, again, I would still carry him, but I think what they're viewing him as is not an infielder or a utility player. I think they're viewing him as an outfielder.
So let's continue. Let's get to the outfield. Guys that I think will be on this roster on opening day in the outfield include Victor Scott, Jordan Walker, Nelson Velasquez, who I did not see on opening day about a month ago, but here we are. He has power. That's what they need. He happens to play left field. And Nathan Church. And that's my position players that I have making the opening day roster.
That's the 13 I have as well.
Okay, so let's get into it. Let's talk about the position player side of things. Neither of us had Thomas Saggese making this roster. I think he's really the only one that's a surprise. I don't think there's anybody else that maybe coming into spring training, you would have thought Jimmy Crooks could have made the opening day roster. That was pretty clear once we got into spring training and Herrera wasn't taking many at-bats as a catcher. I think it was pretty clear, okay, that guy's not going to break camp with the team.
And I really thought he would because at the time, I didn't view Pozo as a backup first baseman.
There you go.
Once Pozo got reps at first base, because of Herrera, I was skeptical if he was going to be catching a lot. I thought, okay, so you're going Pages Crooks as the catcher tandem, and Pozo's the guy that you learned from at AAA. And then when Pozo started taking fielders at first base, I went, okay, that's how he stays on the roster. He can serve as the backup catcher and your backup first baseman.
Yeah. So I agree with you. I think that's the one real surprise. I feel for Saggese. I am somebody that still believes in him. I know that is not a common belief right now. I think general consensus is that Thomas Saggese is a future utility player for the Cardinals who can play a little bit of everywhere, is probably going to be nothing more than an average bat at the major league level, and he always kind of leaves you wanting a little bit more. I think that's the prevailing thought on him. I think he can be more than that. I do think he can be a productive major league hitter. I think he goes about it in a weird way, especially for the modern game. He's very aggressive. He's not going to walk a ton. But I think you can win that way. I still think you can have success as a swing for everything kind of a player, as long as you have the bat to ball skills. Alec Burleson would be an example of that at the big league level where it has worked. And his approach last year, it paid off for him. I think he can be that with a little less power, but doing so from the right side for the Cardinals. I just don't think he gave himself the best chance this year. Him going to the World Baseball Classic, I get why he did it. I don't blame him for it. I think he thought he was going to be the starting shortstop for Team Italy. Well, they had a guy that basically beat him out. He did not play well, Thomas Saggese, when he was getting opportunities. And over the last 10 days, he basically didn't play in the World Baseball Classic. Meanwhile, Nelson Velazquez went on an absolute tear in spring training. If you're listening to this show and you've spent any amount of time listening to us, either here or on the show that we do on 101 ESPN, BK and Ferrario weekdays from 11 to 2, you know how I feel about spring training results. I do not care about them. However, if you're going to have a competition in spring training, eventually the results have to matter. So for this specific instance, Nelson Velazquez and his near 1,200 OPS in spring training, yeah, man, I have to take into account that has to matter to me. And he's just earned his way onto the roster. Meanwhile, Thomas Saggese didn't hit when he was with the Cardinals in spring training, didn't hit while he was in the World Baseball Classic. And now I think the results of that, because he has the options and it's the path of least resistance, I think he's going to play every single day, primarily in the outfield for AAA. And then a month, 6 weeks into the season, or if there's any kind of an injury that takes place at the major league level, that's when we can have further conversations about him. I just don't think he's a guy that's going to start the season with the big league club. I think for me, if he doesn't get a single at-bat in the first month of the season, whatever. If Ramon Urias does not get a single at-bat in the first month of the season, that's what he was signed for. Nathan Church is a perfect fourth outfielder. I think that's what he is long-term. There's less risk with those guys than Saggese, who I would like to see him get regular at-bats. I don't want him wasting away on this bench right now.
Yeah, and I get it because he's still kind of a prospect, was at one point a top 100 prospect when he was in the Texas Rangers minor league system before he was acquired in the Montgomery deal. I still don't see much of a ceiling on him. And the reason that I bring up the idea of I'm still open-minded to carrying him on this roster is I think he can serve in a super utility role. I think that is his eventual path to being a big leaguer because let's just use the Cardinals as an example. Is there an infield spot that he's playing at in the future that he could become that guy? You could maybe make an argument at third base, but I don't know if I really view him as a true third baseman. I think he can play it. I think he's capable of it, but I don't know that he's someone that you want to build on as your third baseman long term.
Before you go on from there, I would agree. I don't know that he's a third baseman, but I could see a scenario in which the Cardinals give up on Nolan Gorman this year, and either he's the guy that replaces him at third, or
Wetherholt.
You kick Wetherholt over to third if you prefer him there, and then you put Thomas Saggese at second base. That would be the other out that I would give it for the infield.
Yes.
But in one way or another, he's replacing Nolan Gorman in that scenario you presented.
So you've got one spot there, and then even if you do view him as a outfielder long term, because we've talked about Newpart's future's probably not here in the Cardinals organization. If he's a guy that comes back in a month, is healthy, probably trade at the trade deadline. He doesn't profile as a typical corner outfielder. When you think of a typical corner outfielder, you typically, I know Newpart doesn't fit this, but you either think of an extremely high on-base leadoff type guy, like Newpart, like a Brandon Nimmo is in the past, or you think of power in the corners, right? You think of guys like Matt Holliday. That's what Jordan Walker was supposed to be in right field. And he doesn't profile that way. So I see him more in fitting into the super utility role, which is he can bounce around. He probably never really locks in one position, but he can give you serviceable time when guys need a day off. So when Gorman needs a day off, boom, he could go play the hot corner if you need be. Or Wetherholt needs a day off, boom, he goes to second base. Oh, he needs someone to go play in right field today because Walker needs a day. Boom, he can go to right field. Sounds like they want him to work potentially in center field as well. All right, well, maybe if he's capable in center field, we find out in the final week and a half of spring training, boom, he plays in center field and gives Victor Scott a day off. And I think that's how he would get at-bats at the major league level. But that's why I look back on this Urias signing going, man, that really is the one that I think they look back on and go, that's what took the job from Thomas Saggese.
But I think that's okay. I don't think he was going to be getting those opportunities. I think this year, especially early in the season, they have a day off every week. And that's part of why we'll get into it a little later on. They're going to probably go with a 5-man rotation instead of a 6, or at least that's the way they're selling it. I don't think they're going to have as many built-in off days because the team is so much younger. The guys that you would primarily see those off days for in the past were like Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt. They would go play DH for a day and they'd get them off their feet, and it's because they're getting up there in age. I don't think you're going to see that as much for basically the entire teams in their early to mid-20s. Probably not going to need that many off days for those guys. And I also think you're going to see the DH spot clogged up a decent amount by Ivan Herrera. So there's just going to be less flexibility with the lineup. And some people may like that. Some people may prefer it that way. So I don't think there's going to be as many opportunities for Saggese to get into the lineup. So for Urias, you signed him to basically be a $2 million guy that's there to fill in if and when you need him, but you never feel the need to get him in the lineup. I also think we might be underestimating the power for Thomas Saggese, just generally speaking. In AAA, now this is not always something that translates to the big league level. That is an important caveat, and I think that might be what you're about to say to me, T-Bone. But at the AAA level, he's played 180 games, and in those 180 games, he does have 26 home runs. And that's not nothing. That's a 20-ish to 25 home run projection over the course of a 162 game season. I think he doesn't look the part of a traditional power hitter, but he does have more pop in his bat, or at least has in the minor leagues, than I think we necessarily give him credit for. He just hasn't necessarily seen that translate to the major league level yet. And we'll see if it ever does. It might not, but he's still only 23. We talk all the time about how Jordan Walker's still a young player. It feels like Saggese's kind of been around for a long time, but he's not actually an old guy, and he doesn't have a ton of major league experience. So I'm still leaving the light on. I'm still at least open to the idea that he can be a little bit more than what we've seen thus far.
Yeah, and I don't see the power translating for him. I think the AAA numbers are a bit of a mirage when it comes to his power. I think his profile here at the big league level is a guy that hits for average, and that's what carries the on base. I think he's more of an on base kind of slap hitting average guy with maybe some doubles power in him, but not home run power, insignificant slug. Like, I think that is the friendly ballparks that you can see at the AAA level for him, because I've never seen that from him here at the big league level. To me, he almost looks a little overmatched at times, which could be part of his youth, but I don't see a guy that, like, when he does connect, I see a guy that's hitting home runs. I see an average hitter when he's doing that. Like 258 is what he hit last year. I could see him bumping that up to being like 270, 275 as he starts to grow in and kind of mature at the major league level. But I still think you could have found at-bats for him here at the major league level. Now, does that mean you are forcing some at-bats for him? Probably. But I think you're probably doing that over Gorman and Walker, which I think they're open-minded to potentially doing. Like, I think they really want to, I don't know if you want to say put pressure on those guys, but I don't know how long a leash those guys are truly getting this season, right? I'm not as convinced that it is a, you know what, write it in pen, Walker's playing the full 162. Write it in pen, Nolan Gorman's playing the full 162. If those guys look a lot like what they have looked like in the last couple of seasons, now you've got at-bats for potentially Joshua Baez in the outfield. You've potentially got at-bats for whether it be Wetherholt kicks over to third, or, as we just talked about, Saggese can finally come up and you go, you know what? He's tearing the cover off the ball at AAA. Let's see what he looks like. We'll put him on the infield, and we can also play him in the outfield at times if we need to, like they've done with Brendan Donovan when he first came up. So I think that's how they could have gotten him at-bats, because I just don't know how much more you really are going to give a leash to Nolan Gorman and Jordan Walker this season.
So those are the roster projections on the position player side of things. I think the pitching is a little easier. Now, there was one spot that I struggled with, and I'm curious if we ended up settling on the same pitcher or not. I think the rotation's set. I don't really think there's anything to discuss here other than what it means for the player that's left off. I think you're going with a 5-man rotation.
Great.
I think it will be Libby, May, McGreevy, Leahy, Palante.
That's what I've got.
I do not think Richard Fitz is going to break camp with the Cardinals on the opening day roster. Let's get into that here in just a little bit. I also don't have in my bullpen. I'm curious if maybe you do. Ives Swanson, O'Brien, Romero, Stanek as a clear-cut, no doubt about it. Those 4 are making the roster.
Agreed.
Beyond that, I have Brule, Pushard, Soriano, and my last player coming out of the bullpen was Graceffo. I settled on him because I do think they're going to want somebody that can give them multiple innings at the beginning of the season just as a filler. I wasn't sure if Graceffo would be the guy for sure, but that's who I settled on. Did you have the same bullpen or did you have a different name?
I had the same bullpen.
Okay.
The reason I came to that conclusion, I actually would lock in Graceffo and Soriano and Brule. I think there's only one spot that's up for grabs in the bullpen, and it's that Pushard spot. I think it's basically down to, is it Pushard or is it Roycroft? And sorry, Roycroft, you lose because you have options left. And I think you took Pushard in that Rule 5 draft to at least just see what he looks like. The weird thing is he's not been talked about really at camp. But like I look at his numbers and it's nothing that pops off as great. It also isn't something that I look at and go, my God, that guy's been terrible. So I think he kind of makes it by default. But the reason I locked in Graceffo, what you said, he gives them multiple innings. I locked in Soriano because he's out of options, and I don't think they want to lose him. They traded away a bullpen arm with control for him in Granillo. So I think they want to see Soriano, and he's been awesome from what we've seen in camp so far. And they want a left-hander, and Brule's the only guy that's left-handed that's on the 40-man roster outside Romero. So I think he makes it automatically.
I think these decisions are pretty easy because of those limitations with their options.
Yeah.
You don't want to lose these guys for nothing just yet. Now, maybe a month from now, you decide it's not working with Pushard. It's not working with Brule. And if you do, that's fine. You can then make the decision to DFA them. You're not out a ton. And you're able to bring up Chris Roycroft. You can bring up whoever else the reliever is that's come out of nowhere that's suddenly throwing 97 like all of their pitchers appear to be doing right now. And they rise through the ranks quicker than any of us expected them to. Or maybe it's Tink Hintz who has transitioned to the bullpen. Whatever it may be, a month, 2 months, 3 months in. But for right now, you're not forced to make decisions yet. So don't. In a year in which these early seasons, last year I remember doing the show, T-Bone, and we complained and complained and
Doesn't sound like us at all
about trying to develop, quote unquote, a bullpen arm in Ryan Fernandez.
That sounds like me.
And we were like, I just don't understand why you feel the need to do this in a season in which you're trying to win. These games can come back to cost you. And at the end of the year, guess what? They missed the playoffs by a couple of games, in part because of those early season games that they lost. So it just didn't make sense. They don't have that same urgency this year. This year, it's not the same North Star that's guiding them of win as many games as quickly as humanly possible. Now it is, well, develop these assets. There might be something more there than meets the eye right now, and maybe it hasn't come together all the way in spring training, but give it a month, 6 weeks, give them 5, 10 different appearances first, and then you can make your decisions on whether or not there's somebody you want to be here for the long haul. But there's no real pressure to make those decisions immediately. The one you do have to make immediately is in the rotation. And that's where it gets very interesting to me because you don't have the same flexibility limitations there. Libby, Palante, McGreevy, and Leahy all have options. Now, that doesn't mean they're going down, but they can technically go down if they wanted them to. They could also technically go with the 6-man rotation, send Gordon Graceffo down, and you just make it work that way. I didn't have Richard Fitts on this roster. It pains me that that's the case. I think Richard Fitts has earned an opportunity at the big league level, both with what he did last year and also what he's shown so far in spring. That being said, if they're going to go with the 5-man rotation, I know people don't want to hear this. And again, don't shoot the messenger. Palante's shown some stuff in spring training that's worthy of finding out whether or not it's going to work. There's no pressure to make a decision right now. See what Palante looks like as a starter. Give him 6+ weeks in that rotation. And if it looks terrible, if it's as bad as it was last year, well, guess what? He can go to the bullpen. He takes Graceffo's spot, or he goes down to AAA and just switches with Richard Fitts. And then you get to find out what Richard Fitts can do. The other thing with Fitts, his command just hasn't been very good so far in spring. So allow him to go work on that down in AAA without guys at the big league level just spitting on everything that it is that he's throwing that's missing the plate by 6 inches. So at the AAA level, that some of that stuff can work. It's not going to play at the big league level the same way, especially once you're out of spring training. So that's my case for it. I think that's going to be their case for it. And that's why I believe that Andre Palante will, in fact, make this roster over Richard Fitts come opening day.
Yeah, and going with a 5-man, which I'm okay with. I heard what their reasoning for it was. I just think it's they have more depth this year rather than, oh, well, we have more off days. You have one more off day than he did last year. So, in other words, I think you just feel better about your depth, which is fine. You remember last year, they only had one guy outside of the guys that broke camp as starters in the minors, and that was McGreevy. This year, you're looking at Fitz, Dobbins, who will start the year on the IL, but will eventually be down there, along with Quinn Matthews, Bryson Motts, and by late in the year, potentially Liam Doyle. Well, that's 5 guys. So you've got some real depth that is starting to cook down there.
Maybe Senja by the end of the year, too.
And Senja as well. So that's another 6 guy that adds in. And there's a couple other. Henderson's an interesting arm as well at some point, potentially. But I like the fact that they would send down Fitz then, so you continue to stretch him out, have him as a starting option. Because the one thing, and I don't think they've done this recently, I think they flirted with it for a while with Palante at one point in his career, is, well, we've got this other starter. Why don't we just put him in the bullpen and have him as long relief? I hate the idea of carrying a long reliever because how often do you truly need a long reliever in a game?
Typically, it's if things have gone incredibly poorly.
Exactly.
So you're really just throwing him out there, break glass in case of emergency.
And it's like,
you're getting destroyed. Please go eat 5 innings for us.
And it's typically like once a week, if that, right?
You hope not even that much.
Yeah. And so, like, that's why I hate the idea of carrying a quote-unquote long reliever. I would rather that just kind of use Graceffo in that role. And you know what? Then Graceffo goes down, you get a fresh bullpen arm. I want Fitz to be on the routine of starting every 6th day down at AAA. So I like the idea of sending him down if he didn't make it. And to your point on Andre Palante, one, he's earned it because he's been good in spring. He added the kick change, so we'll see if it helps him out this season. But, last year was really the first year that as a starter, things got away from him. You look back at his career, let's not forget, 2022, he bailed out the Cardinals until they got Quintana and Montgomery added at the deadline. In 10 starts, he had a 3.9 ERA. You go back to when he went down in 2024, where he starts the year as a bullpen arm. He goes down to the minors and says, let me stretch out. And he stretches out and he comes up. In 20 starts, he had a 3.5 ERA. Like, we forget that Palante has put together very good stretches as a starter. Now, he doesn't strike out a bunch of guys, and I don't think that will ever truly become his profile because I don't think you can add significant amount of swing and miss to his game. But if he could be a sub-4 ERA guy or a 4 ERA guy, that's a perfect number 4 starter in Major League Baseball. So he's won this competition, and if some of the changes have helped him out to get back to that, that's a guy that can truly help any team across baseball as a number 4 that goes out there and surprisingly can eat a couple innings. Some people forget he also does a pretty good job of eating innings. Give you 5 or 6 innings of 3 or 4 run ball and keep you in any baseball game.
It's not sexy. It's not fun to watch. It's kind of similar to what Dakota Hudson once upon a time was.
Yeah.
Where, can it work for you? Yeah. Would you always like to upgrade out of him?
Yeah.
Yes. And when he's cheap, you like having him. And when he gets more expensive, as Andre Palante probably will after this year, you say, thank you so much for your service. I hope you enjoy your stay with wherever you are next. But for right now, he's a perfectly fine option for them in the rotation. He can be a part of this thing. You find out if there's something more there, see what the kick change does for him. And if it fails, and you move on. But for right now, I do think it's the right way to go about it. And it's just going to frustrate the hell out of a lot of fans that Richard Fitz is not a part of this rotation. And so you look at it and you're like, hold on. So compared to last year, the one thing they've added is Dustin May. Everything else in the rotation is basically the same as it was this time last year. And then you look at the lineup and it's basically just JJ Wetherholt and Nelson Velazquez. That's the change from last year that has quote unquote upgraded us or younger than what we used to be. And the answer is yes. That's exactly right. That's the change that you see. It will continue to evolve, though. This is the opening day roster. It will look very different, I believe, in June. And then imagine how much different it's going to look like in August. So give it time. It's going to be a trial and error kind of season. We're all going to go through this thing together. It's going to be a very different experience to watch a rebuilding Cardinals team compared to one that you go into opening day and there's urgency to get things right and to hit the ground running from day one. This is going to be a very different experience to follow, to cover, and to watch on a day-to-day basis.
What do you think the reaction is going to be if they play well in the first month? Because that's where I will find, not so much what the front office will do, because, I think we saw, or they were selling the idea last year, hey, if we play well in the first month, maybe we start to sell tickets. And then it was, okay, so you guys are selling mixed messaging of sometimes we're not trying and sometimes we are trying. What I will find interesting is I think they're on a clear course of hey, don't look at the wins and losses. Chaim Bloom has been specific on that. I think Ollie will try and sell that message as well as he can as well. I will find it fascinating if they get off to a good start and are like above 500 in the first month. And then when some of these signs start to come back, kind of go back to what we expected, like Palante, for example, maybe pitches well in the first month. And then looks like the old Palante by the time we get to May. How quickly we will see some of that reaction start to churn from fans.
See, I think both things can be true. If they play really well in the first month, I don't think they change a ton. But if you then see Andre Palante 4 consecutive bad starts, but the rest of the rotation continues to pitch well, and Richard Fitz is playing well down at AAA, he's pitching well, then you make the switch. I don't think that's sending mixed messages. I think that's, hey, this guy was pitching well. He's no longer pitching well. He's going to go down to work on things, or he's going to go to the bullpen to work on things. And we're going to have Richard Fitz as the next man up. I think you should expect a lot of roster churn this year. Like, that is going to be the clear through line from opening day until the end of the year is you'll see churn on this roster to try to get the best team possible for not only right now, but also for the future. So, I don't think it's going to be as herky-jerky as it's felt in the past, where it's like, oh no, this isn't going right. Now we have to go make this change and this change and this change. And this guy's in the lineup one day and then out of the lineup the next. I think that will feel different. I don't think it'll feel as chaotic. But the churn of it all, I do think will continue to be there. And it'll be more about, hey, now it's time for another new guy to get his opportunity. Let's see if this one works. And if it does, great. We keep going for it. And if not, all right, well, you're going to go back down. We're going to get another guy that can potentially get this opportunity here.
Yeah, I think pitching is one that is easier on the churning because there are so many options now. I think the position player is the one where it'll be more interesting.
I just don't know what's on the position player side of things. There just aren't very many guys to try for the first 2 months of the season or so. Like, really the only guy that's waiting in the wings would be, I don't know, Baez and maybe Saggese. That's kind of it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, already we're seeing pushback on Saggese, right? Like, I think there are fans that think he should be up here.
Sure.
So he immediately puts pressure on Gorman. And then Baez definitely immediately puts pressure on potentially Walker, depending on what Velasquez does in left and how long Nootbaar is out. Those will be the two that will really start to feel the heat early on in the season for the Cardinals. And especially if they win early on, that puts even more pressure on a guy like Jordan Walker and guys like Nolan Gorman of, hey, we're winning early on. Fan base starts to go, hey, this team's maybe a little bit more interesting. And yet you guys still are throwing out Nolan Gorman striking out 40% of the time, and Walker, who's still chasing a slider low and away and hitting the ball on the ground.
All right, so speaking of that lineup, what's it going to look like when the Cardinals take the field on opening day? Who will be batting leadoff for them, and could it be the Rookie of the Year candidate on this team? We'll talk about that next here on the Redbird Report. So when the Cardinals take the field on opening day, who will be the first player to go to the plate? I've got my opening day lineup projection. Now, this one I feel much less confident about than I did about the roster, T-Bone. I'm really not sure how they're going to construct this thing. I think 2 different players have emerged as candidates for the leadoff hitter. I think it's Mason Wynn or JJ Wetherholt. I'm not sure which they'll go with. I'm truly not sure. And it might be a situation where they just say, you know what, Wetherholt didn't force our hand, so we're going to go with a veteran presence, or the more veteran presence for this team, in Mason Wynn. That's possible. But for me, I think it's easier to construct the lineup in a way that makes sense if it is JJ Wetherholt, actually, because 100%. Of the lefty that's at the top of the order. And on opening day, they will be going up, I would assume, against a righty, with the Tampa Bay Rays coming to town. So I did have JJ Wetherholt as my leadoff hitter for opening day. Did you have somebody different?
I went back and forth and settled on Wynn as the leadoff hitter. I wonder if, I've gone back and forth in this in my head, is there really pressure on Wetherholt or not? I think they will slow play him and start him lower in the order. That's why I have Wynn leading off. Now that kind of bumps everybody up a little bit, because ideally I think you'd prefer to have Burley hitting 3, and I'm assuming that's where he's at in your lineup with Wetherholt leading off. We can
go through this, but yeah.
So I, with that being said, I went Wynn at leadoff and then went Burley as the 2-hole hitter. And then it just kind of trickles down from there. So Herrera then ends up hitting 3. I think Velasquez is your cleanup hitter on opening day, which is something to say. And then Gorman is the 5-hole hitter for me. And then I think that's when you get to maybe they go back-to-back lefties with Wetherholt, because I don't know that you can put Walker ahead of him. So I've got Wetherholt in the 6th spot, and then Walker behind him, Paez and Scott as my lineup.
So I think there's a chance that's what they do. I do wonder about the Velazquez as your cleanup hitter situation. I mean, you don't really have much of a choice. And that's what you fall into when you have Mason Wynn as your leadoff hitter. And
because Gorman's gotten hot, this is what's also helped kind of change my tone on this, is he wasn't hitting a week ago. Now he's got like 3 home runs. They may then flip Velazquez and Gorman. So Gorman might be the cleanup hitter. That's how you keep that alternating right, left, right, left.
So for me, I had Wetherholt batting leadoff. I had Mason Wynn as the 2-hole hitter. I think they would like him toward the top of the lineup this year. I think that incentivizes him. Your 3-hole hitter is Alec Burleson, and your cleanup hitter is Ivan Herrera. I think that puts your 4 best players in the top 4 of the lineup. And that's why I said it makes sense to have JJ Wetherholt as the leadoff hitter. I also think he just profiles well there. He's going to get on base at a pretty good clip. I don't know what the power is going to look like early on, but this puts him in a position where he doesn't have to swing for the fences. His job is to get on base, and then the guys behind him can drive him in. So I do like the way that's constructed. From there, Gorman's played well. He's my 5-hole hitter. So you've got Herrera, then Gorman, and then Velazquez batting 6th. Walker 7th. I've got Victor Scott. I don't love it, but I've got him 8th because I've got the leadoff hitter as the lefty with JJ Wetherholt. So I'm going to have Scott 8 and Pages 9. It's not your traditional, the double leadoff that I know you like. Pages doesn't exactly work for that.
Scream double leadoff vibes.
But it allows you to go, the only back-to-back righties in this lineup would be Velazquez 6, Walker 7, and otherwise it's the left, right that they prefer to go with.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said there. I think that's ideally where they will get to. I'm just skeptical if they're going to do it early on, just kind of take away some of that pressure from JJ Wetherholt and let him kind of get his feet wet in the first month. And then if he's playing well, okay, we do view you as a top of the order hitter for us, because I don't know, and Tarek Gould, who was on with us today on BK and Ferrari, was kind of the one that kind of got me to this point of, I don't know if they want to hit him leadoff, and then if he struggles, say, okay, we're bumping you down in the order. I think they would rather have him start lower in the order, and then if he struggles, you just keep him there, and you just continue to work with him. And then when he starts to have success, you can move him up as a boost of confidence, rather than, boy, you're really struggling, let's tear you down more and knock you down lower in the order.
Totally get it. Makes all the sense in the world. I would say the opposite can also be true, though, where, okay, what happens if I put him at the top of the order? What changes for him? And I do wonder if maybe you get pitched a little differently.
That's what I was thinking too.
Because if you are batting, let's call it 6th, right? And so you put him, like where you had him was in front of Walker and Pages and Victor Scott. Man, that ain't serving as a whole lot of protection. I can attack the hell out of JJ Wetherholt if that's what's coming up behind him. And I can just say, hey, here's sliders galore. And if you're going to spit on him all day, great. But we don't think that you're going to be able to. If you're at the top of the order and I've got to worry about Burleson and Herrera coming up potentially in the same inning as you, that changes things quite a bit. So I know protection can sometimes be a little bit overstated, and it's not as if this team has like Aaron Judge and Bryce Harper behind him that scares the hell out of you, or what the Dodgers have in the middle of their order, but it is a little better. So I don't mind that. I would also say, like, tell JJ Wetherholt, hey, listen, I do wonder, if you're him, could it also instill some confidence if you say, hey, I know you're batting 185 right now and we're 3 weeks into the season. I don't care. You're going to stay in the leadoff spot because we believe in you. You're going to get through this thing and we're going to see it through with you. And we're going to stand right next to you. And we put you up there because we believe in you. And we're going to continue to do so while you're going through these struggles. I don't know, but I could see either direction. I could see the case for either of them. If you just want to put your best dudes at the top of the order, and I think ultimately that's what makes the best lineup for this team, I would go with JJ Wetherholt as my leadoff hitter on opening day, see how it goes, and adjust accordingly. Give it about 3 to 4 weeks, find out where he's at, and see what you need to do, or if there needs to be adjustments later on. The other thing that does, you wait a little while, about a month into the season, I think they're going to get Lars Nootbaar back. That's your leadoff hitter if he's struggling. Like, you just put Lars Nootbaar back into the order. He becomes your leadoff hitter. It's not a quote-unquote demotion. It's the guy that was always supposed to be the leadoff hitter anyways. Yeah. So that's the other thing you can use as a potential explanation, not necessarily an excuse, as to why JJ Wetherholt's bumping down in the order. Hey, this guy's done it. He's really good at it. He gets on base like 36% of the time. We're going to batch you 5th or 6th, and we'll get you back on track. And then later on, we'll see where you can go. Maybe you end up being our 2 or 3 hole hitter by the end of the year.
Yeah, I find him the most interesting to see what they decide to do with. Because, like, everybody else, like Burley Herrera, yeah, they belong in the middle. Wins shouldn't be a leadoff hitter, but on this team, he kind of fits the profile for them. Velasquez is whatever. Gorman, Walker, same thing. Wetherholt's the one, and to what you said about the protection was something that I have been thinking about, because you're right. If he's in that like 6 spot, which is where I have him, and he's got Walker, Scott, and Pages behind him, yeah, you're going to be throwing stuff out of the zone, and you don't want Wetherholt to beat you. And you can either look at that as one of two things. One, if he struggles early on, maybe he presses a little bit more and starts chasing stuff out of the zone. Or two, maybe he showcases that eye early on in the season and says, hey, I'm doing my job. I'm getting on base. It's not my fault Walker, Pages, and Scott aren't driving me in. And then he slowly builds that confidence into what he's seeing. And then when he moves up in the order, now teams start to come into the zone and he's ready for that. But I don't know what they're going to do with him. And if he hits leadoff, we'll talk about this when we get there. I don't know where the hell Nootbaar's hitting in the lineup, because he's not a 3-hole hitter. He's not a 5-hole hitter.
Probably
he's
6.
a true leadoff hitter. And 6 even feels like a just kind of square peg going into a round hole.
Yeah. You could end up, I mean, it could be like a Nootbaar 1, Wynn 2, Wetherholt 3, Herrera 4, and
Burley 5.
And
That
then you
would make
have
sense.
Newt as your 7-hole hitter.
Yeah. And I could see that. It just depends on when we'll see how he profiles, right? Is he going to be more of the Nootbaar type where he is taking his pitches, getting on base via walks, which is kind of what he's looked like in spring so far. I mean, he's only hitting, I think, 240 or 230, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And he's got a high OPS because his on base is so high.
It's like 450.
Yeah.
I was looking at that earlier today. I was like, is this right? Am I missing something? How is he getting on base nearly 50% of the time? It's pretty remarkable. I mean, you referenced it. We talked to Derek Gould on the show every week, and he said, with what he's seen so far in camp, JJ Wetherholt already looks like the best hitter on the team. And that may not sound like such a huge statement, but Alec Burleson's good. Ivan Herrera's a good hitter. And to have JJ Wetherholt already looking that way as a 23-year-old, it speaks to why he was one of the top prospects in minor league baseball. It also speaks to, and this maybe we can end this here, T-Bone, why I know a lot of people are hesitant to buy in on Wetherholt because of the ghosts of prospects past. It failed with Jordan Walker, or at least it has thus far. It eventually failed with Dylan Carlson. I think that was more related to injury, but it failed with him. It failed with Alex Reyes as a pitcher. It's failing with Nolan Gorman as a hitter. Like a lot of the guys that have been hyped up both locally and nationally have not worked out for the Cardinals. And so this just feels like the latest version of that, right? I do think it's quite different. JJ Wetherholt was not rushed here. He was given ample amount of time to progress through the minor leagues, which is significantly different than what it's been for most of those other players that I just referenced. He also has a very different profile. I would say the most similar, and don't get scared about this, the most similar profile to Wetherholt in the way that they win as hitters is probably Dylan Carlson, where it's just like, hey man, gonna hit for average, gonna get on base, maybe not a ton of pop, but a decent amount, just enough there to be a potential all-star, but definitely a regular and a starter on a good team, a contending team for the longevity of their careers. Carlson, the injury bug bit him. I think it sapped away all of his athleticism. He wasn't the same player by like year 3 that he was early on when he was actually quite good. And if you told me Dylan Carlson's first year is what we see this year out of JJ Wetherholt, I think that'd be a win for the Cardinals with what they're expecting out of him offensively. But the reason I bring that up is because I think that this team's going to be quite bad. I don't think they're going to be very good this year. I wanted to finish the show and our final show that we're doing prior to the start of the season by asking you a very simple question. If the Cardinals win 85 games this year, not a crazy high bar to clear, but a bar that this team is unlikely to clear nonetheless. If they were to win 85 games this year, it will be because blank. Fill in that blank, because for me, Wetherholt is a huge part of it. If the Cardinals win 85 games this year, it will be in large part because JJ Wetherholt is everything that he was sold to be. It will also be because this rotation, they were able to do with some of these starters what the Brewers have done with smaller name starters in the past, where Colin Ray is suddenly really good, or last year they go out there and Quinn Priester suddenly has a 3.5 ERA. That's going to be a big part of it for the Cardinals as well. And beyond all of that, it will be because they have one of the top 5 to 7 bullpens in all of Major League Baseball. And if they're able to get all of those things in place, Burleson's the same guy, Herrera's the same guy, maybe they get another surprise on the position player side of things. That's the way that it happens. How likely is that? It's pretty unlikely. But I think to me, that would be the way that it takes place. Do you have anything else that comes to mind immediately when I say, if the Cardinals win 85 games this year, it will be because blank?
I think the thing for me that I would highlight, I do think Wetherholt would be a part of it. Like, I do agree with that. I think the biggest thing that will be the driving force if they win 85 games would be the starting staff. And I think it would be the bullpen, like you were saying. I think you have to basically become the Brewers. And what I mean by that is, look at that rotation. I mean, you mentioned it. It's just a bunch of guys that you go, man, he has a 3.5 ERA. How the hell does he have a 3.5 ERA? That's how you're going to get there. Because, I mean, we saw with them last year. Their pitching was just average on top of an average offense, and they were in the race for a while. What can really separate you from there to where, I referenced this on our show, BK and Ferrario. The World Baseball Classic shows you good pitching will always overcome good offenses. So you can have a bad offense and stick around in a race. You can have a bad offense and win 85 games. Look at the Reds last year. The Reds offense wasn't very good, and they made the freaking playoffs. But how were they able to get there? It was all on their pitching, right? In the second half, De La Cruz fell off of a cliff because he was tired. But man, did they have some dudes in that rotation. And I don't even think you have to have dudes in the rotation to get there. Maybe comes that for you in the first half, and then it becomes a question if he's here. But I think it just becomes the pitching basically keeps him in every game, and then you have three guys in Burleson, Herrera, and Wetherholt, and you hope that the lineup happens to get to them and they come through in the clutch for you, and you find a way to win a couple of games. But that's the only way that I see him getting there. I just don't think this offense is going to be good enough to where if this pitching staff is average or below average like it was last year, I think they're going to be what we think. They're going to be about a 90-loss team, 95-loss team that probably finishes last in the NL Central. They get to 85 wins. It's going to be, we look back and go, wow, they found something in Palante's kick change, or holy cow, Libby actually was able to piece it together this year. May has a bounce back. Oh, Richard Fitz came up and was really good. Oh, after they traded away Dustin May, holy cow, Quinn Matthews figured it all out. Or Liam Doyle, here he is, boom, and he's just great. I think that's how they get to 85 wins. It's all starting with the pitching.
We made it. We made it through one hell of an offseason. Lots of trades, lots of banter.
Certainly was an exciting offseason in terms of just making a bunch of moves.
A new era of Cardinals baseball officially begins 1 week from now as the Cardinals will take the field for opening day against the Tampa Bay Rays. We're going to be chronicling it throughout the Cardinals regular season. We'll be weekly here on the Redbird Report. So if you have not done so yet, please subscribe to the podcast feed wherever it is that you get podcasts. You can also subscribe to the BK and Ferrario feed. That will mean that the Redbird Report immediately is posted for you whenever it is that it is posted. You can always check us out as well on YouTube because Zane always takes care of us over there. YouTube.com/101ESPN STL. If you ever want to see us on the YouTube feed, that is the place where you can go to find us. Be sure to like and subscribe over there as well. For Tanner Hendrickson and Zane, I'm Brandon Kiley. We will talk to you guys very soon as baseball season is officially upon us here on the Redbird Report.
Find every episode of the Redbird Report with Brandon Kiley and Tanner Hendrickson on YouTube or at 101ESPN.com.